Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's live stream. So before I do get going with the stream today, of course, I do want to share my website once again, which is bponlinefitness.com. Again, you can check out a ton of information on here as it relates to online fitness coaching. This is what my website looks like on, of course, the desktop, but you can check out my website on mobile as well. I do have a ton of information on here. I do have client testimonies here where you can check out some of the experiences my clients have had. I'm actually going to be adding a new testimony pretty soon. I haven't had the chance to upload it. I do have a free fitness blog that you can check out here as well, where I share a ton of different fitness and nutrition related information. And then, of course, you can also check out a little bit about the program here, which breaks down some of the sort of structure of how online coaching works. And of course, if you're interested, you can also join the team, which is this is where you actually sign up for online fitness coaching. So if you go through this top form, this is where you can get to the process of scheduling your consultation. So once you have submitted this, I'll basically contact you and we'll set up a date on when you want to go through understanding more about the program. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. There's all kinds of information here. The latest live stream that I've posted is usually uploaded here as well. So I usually try to keep this sort of up to date to where you can check out all the latest stuff that I have going on. There's information about all that I have to offer there. One other thing that I want to mention before I move forward is that I do have a pretty exciting thing that'll be happening tomorrow. So this actually won't go live tomorrow, but if you're not aware, I'm going to be on the Founders Future podcast tomorrow. So if you are interested, feel free to follow this podcast here. This is where I'll actually be on tomorrow. The podcast won't be uploaded tomorrow, but I will actually be featured on this podcast. So I have that planned for tomorrow, and I will let you guys know when that does go live and when you can really, listen to that. Basically, what I'm going to be discussing on here is more about, sort of my founding of my business and how I got started with online fitness coaching. So that's what I'm going to be going over in this podcast. Again, it's just called Founders Future. So if you're interested, check out that podcast. I will be featured on there pretty soon. And again, I'll let you guys know when that podcast will be available. So let's go ahead and get going today with our live stream, of course, which is going to be going over protein strategy that actually works. So in this stream, we're going to go over a ton of different points when it comes to protein strategy and how you can make protein, your protein intake work for you in the proper way to allow you to progress further in your workout routine. So these are some of the topics that we're going to be sort of going over today. And we're going to try to break down a lot of these different points and really get to understanding what these mean and how you can use these in your overall workout routine. I'm trying to get out of the way here. But these are all of what we're going to be going over. We're going to go over the protein anchor habit, daily protein target per day, beats per meal timing that matters and what doesn't, the leucine trigger for muscle protein synthesis, protein distribution, the 3 to 5 meal rule, protein quality, choosing the right protein for the moment, high protein without dry chicken life, and then protein in surplus versus a deficit, tracking protein and things of that nature. So we're going to try to go over a lot of these different points here today and really discuss the importance of understanding these points in your workout routine. So let's go ahead and get started with the first point here, which is the protein anchor habit. So the anchor habit means starting every main meal with 30 to 50 grams of high quality protein. Protein isn't an afterthought, it's a foundation of the plate. Now, keep in mind when we're talking about these points when it comes to protein intake, we have to keep in mind that protein, especially for muscle gain, should be your main priority. And that's basically what we're talking about mostly here when we're talking about these habits, is that we're focusing on a muscle gain and hypertrophy based habit. So, why it works when you focus on having every meal start with 30 to 50 grams of high quality protein. So, why it works is that it triggers muscle protein synthesis, which is going to hit the leucine threshold. We'll discuss what leucine means. It is oftentimes found in protein, and this is basically a type of component that can help with the muscle gain process. And that's mainly all you need to know about it. If you get leucine in your diet, it's a good thing, in other words. So, another thing too is that when you focus on having this sufficient protein in your diet, this is going to improve recovery between sessions. So, having adequate protein is going to help you to really maximize that recovery process and allow you to go into your workouts as you move forward more efficiently. It's also going to stabilize your appetite and blood sugar. So keep that in mind as well. I want to make sure that I have audio going. Okay. Just want to make sure I had audio because I wasn't sure. All right. So let me get back to this because I didn't want to go halfway through and then figure out that audio wasn't working. So another point here, of course, is stabilizing appetite and blood sugar. And it's also going to help support lean mass during fat loss, as well as creating structure without obsession. So, muscle responds to consistent signal, not random intake. So, what you need to keep in mind is that protein, in a lot of ways, is not just specific to muscle gain. It is very beneficial, of course, to muscle gain because it is helping in aiding with the muscle protein synthesis process. But keep in mind that even if you're focusing on a fat loss goal, it's still important to have sufficient, you know, muscle to be able to retain in order to help with the fat loss process. So prioritizing protein intake in both ways, even if it's, we're focused on fat loss or muscle gain, both ways it's still very important because protein plays a crucial role in both of those particular goals. So keep that in mind. So daily protein target per day beats per meal. So again, muscle protein synthesis is cumulative, meaning that muscle growth happens over 24 hours and not just in one meal. So you have to make sure that your protein intake is distributed throughout the day. And this is something that I mention time and time again, that we have to make sure that we don't just consume protein in one meal, that we get a sufficient intake throughout each of our meals throughout the day. The leucine trigger is going to be helpful. It's not magic. So, yes, having 25 to 40 grams of high quality protein per meal can stimulate MPS, which is known as muscle protein synthesis, but missing it once won't erase your progress. So, the main thing that we have to think about here is more so about our consistency, less than, you know, trying to perfect everything. And that kind of goes hand in hand with anything that we discuss when it comes to, you know, fitness, nutrition, anything to that effect. If we're trying to build healthy habits, it's not about having everything perfect. It's about being consistent with those habits as much as possible. So again, consistency beats perfection. So hitting your total protein daily is equal to steady recovery, repair, and growth. So don't get so overwhelmed with trying to, hit the targets as much as possible. If you can get as close to reaching that target as you can with your protein intake, then that means you're on the right track. It's more about building the habit. This is something that I mention to clients over and over again, is that you don't have to perfect everything. You have to just focus on gradually integrating these healthier habits in your daily life. Recovery is a 24-hour process. So your body is going to use amino acids all day, not just post workout. So again, that goes into, again, spreading our intake throughout the day. And this not only, of course, goes for protein intake itself, but also our macronutrients at the same time. We still have to have a clear balance in our macros, such as our carbs and our fats, while we still include that protein intake in our diet. So, meal timing that matters and what doesn't. So, keep in mind that total daily intake should always come first. Calories and protein drive progress. So, timing is going to refine the results, it's not going to replace those totals. So, again, this goes back to the concept of consistency being precision. You have to focus on getting a balance between your calorie intake and your protein intake at the same time and building that consistency. So you don't have to have that perfect timing right away. You just have to focus on building the habit, trying to get that total daily intake first. Anchor each meal with protein. So again, this goes hand in hand with what we talked about. Our protein intake should always be aligned with our meals. We should always include a certain degree of protein in our diet in order to help with the process of muscle gain. So, again, 25 to 50 grams per meal. This is not just, you know, it's not like you have to consume, a whole, amount of protein at one meal. You just need to get this certain amount of protein per meal. And again, this is going to be based on your body size and your goal. So, like what I mentioned with fat loss and muscle gain, those two goals are somewhat different in how you approach them, as well as how you sort of contribute your overall protein intake to them. So, for body size, this is a big thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to protein intake is that you have to focus on your protein intake aligning with your current body weight. So, generally, if you're somebody who is around, let's say, 160 pounds, and you're focusing primarily on muscle gain still, so you still want to focus on, of course, like a calorie surplus. So generally, you want to get at least 160 grams of protein per day based on your body weight. And as your body weight changes, that intake is, of course, going to change as your body weight is adjusted to it. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So with our protein, again, 3 to 5 protein feedings per day. So again, we're just spreading that protein intake throughout the day. We're having 25 to 50 grams per those 3 to 5 meals. Another thing too is that you want to space your meals at least 3 to 5 hours apart. You don't want to consume a large amount all at once. You still want to distribute those nutrients throughout the day. And this goes the same way with your carbs and your fats. Your other macros have to be sort of distributed in the same way. Pre-workout fuel as well. So performance is going to be supported. So eat 1 to 2 hours before training. This is, for for everybody, you don't necessarily have to focus on this, but this can actually help with your overall performance support. And I'll discuss too, like post workout, because I don't have post workout protein mentioned here, but I will discuss it as well. So you want to eat 1 to 2 hours before training to include 20 to 40 grams of protein, 25 to 60 grams of carbohydrates, and your goal should be energy and amino acid balance available during training. Generally, pre workout, what we want to focus on as far as our nutrients are concerned is mostly our carb intake. You do want to have generally a high carb intake before your workouts because that's going to help with your performance and your energy as you go into those workouts. Now, if we're talking about post workout, generally post workout, we want to, of course, we want to prioritize mostly our protein intake, but of course, we want to get all those other nutrients. But you want to focus on getting your protein intake within those 1 to 2 hours post workout so that this is going to help with the muscle protein synthesis process. So you don't necessarily have to focus solely on getting a ton of protein before your workout. It's more so when you're in your post workout sort of diet that you want to include that. So the next point here is the leucine trigger. So like I mentioned, leucine is oftentimes, of course, found in protein. It's basically a component that is found in protein, and what this component does is helps with the muscle protein synthesis process. And muscle protein synthesis is basically this, the muscle gain, the sort of basically the body, turning that fuel into muscle, in other words. So leucine is, of course, a branched chain amino acid that acts as a switch to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So even though this is a branched chain amino acid, a lot of times you're going to find it in protein. It could be also found in creatine. So like your different supplements, you can find leucine in it. And when you look at supplement backs, it'll tell you if it has a certain amount of leucine. So leucine is good to have. It's very beneficial in a lot of ways. So why does leucine matter? So leucine activates the motor pathway, which again is that muscle building signal. It's helping to aid in the muscle growth process. It's also helping to initiate repair after resistance training. So like what I mentioned post workout, we want to make sure that we have adequate protein post workout because that's when this process is really activated the most. So you don't have to have that protein intake right away, but you need to make sure that you get it within 1 to 2 hours post workout so that you can really maximize the benefits of that muscle protein synthesis process. So it's going to work best when it's paired with adequate total protein, and it's most effective when consumed in sufficient doses per meal. So you can distribute this in a way throughout your meals as well. So the practical target that you want to focus on when it comes to leucine is generally roughly 2 to 3 grams of leucine per meal. So this is typically found in 25 to 40 grams of high quality protein. Like I mentioned, leucine is not necessarily a supplement in itself, but it is found in a lot of different, it is found in foods, it's found in different supplements like protein. So you're generally going to find it in those types of, sort of foods or supplements, in other words. So your high quality protein is what's going to contribute to, that leucine intake, in other words. So aim for 3 to 5 grams of feeding per day. So again, we want to distribute our protein intake 3 to 5 grams, or excuse me, 3 to 5 feedings per day in those, meals. So you want to prioritize that as much as possible. So to clarify again with leucine is that again it's a branched chain amino acid, and you're going to find it in a lot of protein, high quality protein sources. And again, you can find it in particular supplements like your protein supplements. Sometimes I'm pretty sure that creatine can sometimes have it, but when you look at the back of the label itself, like the supplements, it'll tell you if it does have a certain amount of leucine in it. Generally, you're going to find it in protein, so just keep that in mind. Or, of course, because it is branched chain, what I should add as well, because it is a branched chain amino acid, you can actually get BCAAs as well. That's a supplement in itself, and you're going to likely have leucine in there because it is a branched chain amino acid. So branched chain amino acids is a whole nother topic in itself, but just know that that is a supplement that you can purchase. It's basically sort of in the same type of container like when you find pre-workout or creatine, but it is again, it's just adding, those amino acids. Again, it's the supplement to add to your overall diet and your nutrition. So again, let's continue on here. So protein distribution, the 3 to 5 meal rule. So I know I've mentioned this over and over again, but I do want to touch on this again as well. So most people don't struggle with knowing they need protein. They struggle with how to spread it out so it actually supports muscle growth. So, like I mentioned, you're not consuming 160 grams of protein in a single meal. You're distributing it. And that's how we can total out our daily intake is when we distribute adequate protein throughout the day. So, for most people, if your daily protein target is 150 grams, this is what it's going to look like. So, let me get out of the way a second here. So, like what I mentioned as an example, when we're talking about, you know, 160 grams of protein or like 150 grams, generally, this is how your breakdown is going to be. So, for breakfast, you're going to have 30 to 40 grams for that protein. For lunch, you're going to have 30 to 40 grams. Post workout, 30 to 40 grams. Dinner, 30 to 40 grams. So it's pretty simple. You're having that same sort of protein intake throughout the day. Of course, this is based on, if you're weighing, let's say roughly 150 pounds, you're going to likely focus on at least 150 grams of protein, in your diet. So if you struggle, what I do want to mention too, if you struggle with getting this intake in here, you can add small snacks in between these meals. So in between your breakfast and your lunch, you could add a high quality protein snack. In between your post workout and your dinner, you could add a high quality, sort of protein snack in there to help you get to that, 150 grams of protein. So just keep that in mind when it comes to, distributing protein. If you can't get it in specific meals and if you're struggling to sort of reach that sort of threshold, then focus on including snacks, including supplements. That's what protein supplements, like when we're talking about whey protein, that's what those supplements are for, is that they're going to help you get your intake. That's what those supplements are for. They're not there to replace your diet. They're there to supplement your diet when it comes to whey protein. So protein quality. This is another thing too that I mentioned with all of our nutrients. It's not so much the focus of, maxing out our calorie intake and maxing out our macro intake. It still matters. Yeah, it's great that we reach our, total amount of calories and macros that we give for the day, but it's more so important that we choose quality options because those quality options are what's going to help the most with getting our results. Because if we don't include good food sources, it's going to affect our progress. You can't just consume whatever. You still have to be mindful on what you consume. So this goes hand in hand again here. We're talking about protein. So protein quality refers to your amino acid profile. Does it contain all the essential amino acids? And I won't dive specifically into all the essential amino acids because it would take a while, but there are a specific set of essential amino acids in your diet, and likely you can find, whether you are getting these nutrients. We're talking about nutrition labels. So there's basically 7 to 8 essential amino acids that you'll get. And again, I think I want to break this down in a separate, you know, topic or in a separate live stream because I think this would be better as its own topic rather than trying to add into it here. So just know that you want to have a good amount of those essential amino acids. So like what I mentioned, your branch chain amino acids, those are a little bit separate than when we're talking about essential amino acids. So that's a whole separate topic which I'll discuss, and I don't want to confuse you with all of those different points, but this is something we'll discuss in the future. Digestibility. How well does that protein absorb in, in your body? As well as your leucine content. Again, leucine is again that branched chain amino acid that's helping with muscle gain. So does it effectively stimulate muscle protein synthesis? So are you getting at least 3 to 5 grams of that leucine in your diet? So there are non-essential amino acids in your body, which your body cannot, excuse me, your body cannot produce. So if protein contains all nine in adequate amounts, it's considered complete. So keep that in mind as well. So, like I mentioned, there's a certain amount of essential amino acids that you're getting that your body's going to, that you can't produce. And that's why they're called essential amino acids because we get them from meals. Our body doesn't really produce those. So keep that in mind. But again, I think I want to dive into amino acids themselves in a separate stream because I think it'll be a little bit clearer. And to have that on a more focused topic, I think would be better to sort of understand. But just know that this is where you're going to sort of understand your protein quality in particular. So choosing the right protein for the moment. So protein choice, of course, is going to depend on timing, your training demand, digestibility, and lifestyle practicality. So again, we're kind of going over these points again, but you want to make sure you hit your daily protein intake. Keep in mind it's going to be aligned with your overall body weight. So you have to make sure that you adjust as that changes. Whether you're training, another thing is your training demand. So if you're not aware, if you, excuse me, sorry about that, if you track your protein intake or your nutrients, your macronutrients, you're going to notice that there is a certain amount, like when you, like on MyFitnessPal, I know in particular, it will tell you if there's a certain amount of sort of burned calories from your workouts. And so you kind of have to focus on supplementing those burned calories. So let's say that our, just to give you a clear example, let's say our, calorie intake goal is 3,000 grams of total calories. If we do a workout and we're burning, let's say 600, 600 calories, our total intake is going to have to be adjusted slightly because we've burned 600 calories in our workout. So this is going to take us to 3,600 calories. So you kind of have to make sure that you're still getting that sufficient amount of nutrients and that sufficient amount of protein in your diet as well to make up for those burned calories. Digestibility, again, is a big thing. Making sure that you have good quality protein that's going to help you. Focusing on, of course, making sure, like we're talking about, there's different types of proteins that I do want to mention. So, one of the best types of proteins that can kind of help with digestibility and can really help. Let's say that you struggle to get your intake throughout the day, but you want to make sure that you get as much as you can before the day ends as far as your protein intake. There's a protein supplement that is called casein, and this is similar to your other proteins. It is a protein supplement in itself. It helps with increasing your total, protein intake in your diet. But what this does is when you consume casein, it digests throughout an extended period of time. So you take this at night. So casein digests in a different way than when we're talking about whey protein. So depending on the type of protein you consume, it's going to digest differently. So casein is going to sort of digest throughout the night. It digests in a sort of slow manner. And then when we're talking about whey protein, it's going to digest a little bit more than your casein based protein. That's another topic in itself, all the protein supplements, but that's the reason why there's different types of protein because of some of them is their digestibility, where if you were to take whey protein at night, it would likely not digest as well as when we're talking about casein protein. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about digestibility. Lifestyle practicality. Of course, this goes hand in hand with all of your nutrition. You want to make sure that you can sufficiently hit your goals based on your lifestyle. So, like I mentioned with our habits, we don't want to upend all of our habits all at once. We want to make sure that we slowly put in these better nutrition options and these better macro and calorie options. We want to make sure that it can easily fit in our lifestyle so that it can become a daily habit and it can become consistent. And that's why lifestyle practicality is important to make sure we make it as consistent as possible. So, what you want to focus on is hitting your total daily protein. When you're getting started, even if you don't hit your total daily protein goal, that's fine. Focus on getting into the habit of tracking your protein intake and getting into the habit of seeing where your total intake is at and then build from there. You want to make sure that you distribute across 3 to 5 meals. And of course, if you miss it in between or, in those meals and you're not getting your total amount, try to include some good high quality protein snacks in between those meals. Of course, you want to choose quality when practical. Choose as much quality proteins. You've got your grilled chicken, your lean meats, anything like that, like eggs. Hard boiled eggs is a great, it's something that I use for a snack. It's a great option. You can find a lot of high quality protein out. Quoting, protein. I tried to mix protein and quality at the same time. But you can have, there's a ton of different, quality protein options out there. So just keep that in mind. Match digestion speed with the situation. So again, depending on your situation, like I said, if you're, about to go to sleep, casein is going to be a better option because it's going to digest better in your system. But, if you're going, post workout, include like a protein shake, like your normal whey protein. So make sure you match that digestion with where you're at, in your routine. So again, that kind of goes back to our lifestyle practicality. The more that we can make things, make these habits really be able to, go into our routine, the better it's going to be and the more it's going to last. And that's why I mention that over and over when it comes to our habits is that it's all about making them work into our lifestyle. Because the more that we try to force something that's not going to work, like when we're talking about, trying to completely change our nutrition all at once, it's not going to work because we're not going to be able to build a consistent habit because it's so far outside of what we normally do. We have to slowly take things piece by piece. I know I've said this over and over again, but I think it's important. I think a lot of people don't really understand that. And I think again that's why a lot of people struggle is that they upend everything. They feel like they have to upend their whole life and then put all of these better nutrition options. You don't have to do that all at once. It's piece by piece that you're putting in these better habits, nutrition options. So again, I just want to reiterate that because I think that's important. That's how you make things sustainable is when you can easily, slowly integrate it into your life. So thank you guys once again for taking the time to check this out. I do want to share again one more thing before I close out. So if you guys didn't miss it at the beginning, I will be on the Founders Future podcast and I'll actually be recording it tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to be uploaded yet, but I will be on this podcast where I'm going to be discussing my business and discussing basically how I got started with online fitness coaching. I'm really excited about this. This seems to be a pretty decently sized podcast and a decent sized, group that's doing this podcast. But they basically talk a lot about different businesses, about how different people have sort of founded their businesses, established their businesses, and things of that nature. So I'll be recording this tomorrow. I will let you guys know when it does get uploaded. It says what they had told me in their email is that it'll be uploaded within 2 to 3 weeks after it's recording. So when I do get that, I will let you guys know. But if you want to follow, you can find their podcast on Spotify as well as Apple Music. I know Apple Music does have, or Apple Podcasts, not Apple Music. Apple Podcasts is on there too. All you have to search is Founders Future, and it's under closers.io. That's the group that I'm basically doing the podcast with. So, again, guys, I really want to share that. I'm excited to do this. I'm really looking forward to it because this is actually the second podcast I've been able to do. I did another one which I can share with you. I would have to find it. I know it's been shared with me, but that other podcast was on YouTube and I did it about a year ago and I discussed some about my business. Um, but I'm really looking forward to this because I think it's been a year or so at least when I've done that last one. And this is a different, group that's doing this podcast. But I think my business has really grown since then. Since I've, you know, since that last podcast that I did, I think that I've made a lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes to my overall mission statement. There's been a lot of changes that I've done, over the past year versus, where I was the previous year. So, again, guys, I'm really excited about this. It won't be uploaded tomorrow again. I want to mention it's not going to be uploaded tomorrow, but I'm actually recording tomorrow. I just wanted to share that with you guys that I will be featured on this podcast. So if you want to follow it, feel free. You can find it on Apple Podcasts as well. Another thing, too, guys, again, if you want to check out my website and learn more about online fitness coaching, it's bponlinefitness.com. You can click on join the team up here, and that's how you can go through the process and getting your free consultation scheduled. So I just wanted to share those things before I close out on this with you guys today. Um, I do have, of course, my phone here if you're interested in contacting me. But thank you guys once again. I'm trying to really put myself out there in a lot of ways and really share, you know, the importance of my business. And this is something that I'm really excited to do. I've been really excited to have people that are willing to sort of discuss why this is something that I'm passionate about, why it's been a big part of me. And, it's something that I've not really gotten the chance to fully talk about because a lot of times I'm talking about all of my, fitness and nutrition stuff. Um, so I haven't really got the chance to really dive into, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I so passionate about this? And it's something I'm excited to share, because it's really rewarding to know that there's people that are sort of noticing what I'm building and what I'm creating, and then I'm getting some sort of, recognition from that. So I'm excited to do that podcast. I'm excited to share it with you guys. I will be letting you know when it's uploaded. It'll be a few weeks before it will likely get uploaded, but I'll be recording it tomorrow, at around 11 tomorrow morning. And hoping that it goes smoothly. I'm a little nervous about it, but I think it'll be fine. I've done a podcast before, and I think it'll be fine. But I'm excited about that. If I can find, I'll have to find the other podcast that I did about a year ago and share it with you guys. Um, but thank you guys again for your support. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this was helpful and valuable, and that this gave you a little bit more insight on understanding protein strategy. But again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll have another live stream next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, next Tuesday, I will be doing a TikTok live stream as I have been every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So check that one out as well. So thank you guys once again. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next one.